My name is Alex, and I'm 34 years old. 34 years of being the family's safety net, the emergency contact, the one who always had the answers and the wallet to back them up. 34 years of thinking that love meant sacrifice, that family meant giving until you had nothing left to give. I never thought I'd be here, sitting in this empty apartment, staring at bank statements that tell the story of my life better than any diary ever could. I never thought I'd be the one cut off, the one labeled as the problem, the one told to stay away. But life just hit me hard, and it hit me in a way that showed me exactly who I really was to the people I called family. I did everything I could for my family. Everything. I was always the one to cover bills when paychecks fell short. I was the one they called at 2 in the morning when the car broke down, when the rent was due, when life got messy and complicated. I was the one to solve problems that weren't even mine to solve. I kept things together when everyone else was falling apart. I was the glue, the foundation, the reliable one who never said no. But when the time came to stand up for myself, when I finally needed something back, not money, not favors, just basic respect and acknowledgement, all I got was silence. Cold, deafening silence that spoke louder than any words they could have thrown at me. My father's words still echo in my head like a broken record that won't stop playing. Stay away. The family's had enough of you. Those words, those exact words, after everything I'd given, after every sacrifice I'd made, after every time I put their needs before my own dreams, my own goals, my own happiness, that's what I got. The family's had enough of you. And suddenly, like a light bulb exploding in my face, I realized it wasn't just the money they wanted. It wasn't just the problem solving, the bailouts, the emergency funding. It was me, my energy, my time, my sanity, my peace of mind. I was being used, consumed, drained like a battery that never gets to recharge. I was their emotional and financial ATM, and they didn't even have the decency to say thank you most of the time. All I ever wanted was to be loved back. That's it. That's all. I didn't need grand gestures or expensive gifts in return. I just wanted to feel like I mattered to them as much as they mattered to me. I wanted to feel like when I walked into a room, they were genuinely happy to see me, not because they needed something, but because they loved having me around. I wanted to feel like family meant something more than being the designated problem solver and check writer. But instead, I was pushed away, like I didn't matter. Like all those years of showing up, of being present, of sacrificing my own wants and needs. Like none of it mattered. Like I was disposable. Like I was nothing more than a tool they kept in their back pocket for emergencies. The emotional weight of it all started crushing me slowly, like being buried alive under expectations I never asked for, but somehow inherited. I thought if I gave them everything, and I mean everything, they would finally appreciate me. I thought if I bought my sister that car she desperately needed, if I covered my parents' mortgage payments when Dad lost his job, if I paid for family vacations and birthday parties and Christmas gifts for everyone, they would finally see my worth. I thought if I sacrificed my own financial stability, my own dreams of buying a house, my own plans for the future, they would finally understand how much I loved them. I thought love was measured in dollars spent and problems solved. I thought being the family hero meant I would eventually be treated like one, but instead I was met with laughter. Actual laughter when I tried to express how hurt I was. I was met with eye roll emojis and text messages when I tried to have serious conversations about boundaries and respect. I was met with more empty promises, more manipulation, more guilt trips designed to make me feel selfish for even thinking about my own needs. My sister laughed it off when I told her how exhausted I was from always being the one to fix everything. She literally laughed and said, "That's just what you do, Alex. That's who you are." Like my identity was nothing more than being their personal crisis manager. Like I didn't exist outside of what I could provide for them. My father was silent when I tried to explain how it felt to always give and never receive. Silent. Not even an acknowledgement that he heard me, that my feelings mattered, that maybe, just maybe, they had taken advantage of my generosity over the years. Just silence, followed by him walking away like I was wasting his time. It felt like no one cared. It felt like I could disappear tomorrow and the only thing they'd miss about me was the financial safety net I provided. They'd miss the emergency contact, the problem solver, the guy who always had a solution and the bank account to fund it. But would they miss me? Would they miss Alex, the person, the human being with feelings and dreams and needs of his own? But deep down, somewhere beneath all that pain and anger and disappointment, I knew I was worth more than that. I knew I deserved better. I knew that real family doesn't treat each other like emotional and financial slaves. I knew that love shouldn't feel like a one-way street where I'm always giving and they're always taking. I tried to keep my head up through all of it. I tried to keep giving, to keep fighting for relationships that were slowly killing me from the inside out. I told myself that maybe they'd change. Maybe they'd wake up one day and realize how good they had it. Maybe they'd start treating me with the respect and appreciation I deserved. I kept making excuses for their behavior. They're going through a tough time. They don't really mean it. Family is family, and you don't give up on family. I was drowning in my own optimism, suffocating under the weight of my own hope that things would get better. But then came that text message, that one text message that changed everything, that shattered every last bit of hope I had left. The family's had enough of you. Not, we need some space. Not, let's talk about this. Not, we love you, but we need to work things out. No, the family's had enough of you. Like I was some kind of burden they'd been carrying around for years, waiting for the right moment to dump me. How could I keep giving when no one even saw the real me? How could I keep sacrificing my own happiness for people who couldn't even acknowledge my humanity? How could I keep being the family hero when the family saw me as nothing more than a villain who had the audacity to ask for basic respect? That text message was the final straw, the last nail in the coffin of relationships I had been desperately trying to save for years. It wasn't just words on a screen. It was a declaration of war. It was them telling me, in no uncertain terms, that everything I had given, everything I had sacrificed, everything I had done out of love, it meant nothing to them. And you know what the worst part was? I wasn't even surprised. Somewhere deep down, I had been expecting it. I had been waiting for the moment when they would show their true colors, when the mask would slip, and I would see exactly what I meant to them. Because despite all my hoping and believing and making excuses, I knew. I knew I was being used. I knew they didn't love me the way I loved them. I knew I was fighting a losing battle. That was it. That moment, reading those words on my phone screen, sitting in my car in the parking lot of the grocery store where I had just bought ingredients for a family dinner I was planning to host. That was the moment everything changed. That was the moment I realized I couldn't be the fixer anymore. I couldn't be the one who always had the answers, always had the money, always had the solution to everyone else's problems, while my own problems went ignored and unaddressed. I couldn't be the family therapist, the family bank, the family scapegoat, all rolled into one exhausted, broken person. I had to stop. I had to set boundaries. For the first time in my adult life, I had to put myself first. And I didn't expect it to feel freeing, but it did. It was terrifying and liberating at the same time. It was like taking off a heavy backpack you didn't even realize you were carrying until it was gone. It was hard. God, it was so hard. Walking away from people you love, even when they're toxic, even when they're destroying you, is one of the hardest things you can do. It goes against every instinct you have, every lesson you learned about family loyalty and unconditional love. But I walked away from the chaos. I stopped answering the emergency phone calls. I stopped checking my bank account to see if I could afford to solve someone else's crisis. I stopped planning my life around their needs and emergencies and drama. I walked away, and that night, lying in bed in the quiet of my own space, I realized something profound. You don't need anyone's approval to be at peace. You don't need toxic people to validate your worth. You don't need to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Peace isn't something you find in other people's acceptance of you. Peace is something you create for yourself when you finally stop accepting less than you deserve. That night was the first night in years that I slept without my phone next to my bed, without that constant anxiety that someone might need something from me. It was the first night in years that I went to sleep thinking about my own dreams instead of someone else's problems. It was the first night in years that I felt like I belonged to myself. I'd been paying the price for years, emotionally and financially, just to be loved. I'd been trading my mental health, my financial stability, my own happiness for scraps of affection and moments of appreciation that were few and far between. I'd been selling myself short, accepting crumbs when I deserved the whole meal. But when I took a step back, when I finally got some distance from the situation, I realized I was never going to find that love in their expectations. I was never going to find peace in trying to meet standards that kept changing, in trying to fill holes in people that could never be filled by anything I could give them. I had to love myself first. I had to treat myself with the respect and kindness that I had been giving to everyone else. I had to become my own hero instead of waiting for someone else to save me from the prison I had built out of my own generosity and people-pleasing. The revelation hit me like a truck. I had been so focused on being needed that I forgot to make sure I was actually wanted. I had been so busy being useful that I forgot to be human. I had been so invested in being the solution to everyone else's problems that I became a problem to myself. I realized that I had been enabling their dysfunction by always swooping in to save the day. I had been robbing them of the opportunity to grow and learn and solve their own problems by always being there with my wallet open and my advice ready. I had been hurting all of us by maintaining this toxic dynamic where they got to be irresponsible and I got to be exhausted. At first, they were furious. Oh, they were furious. The phone calls started immediately. Not, "Are you okay?" calls or "We miss you" calls, but angry, accusatory calls about how selfish I was being, how I was abandoning the family, how I was breaking my mother's heart, how I was being ungrateful for everything they had done for me. Ungrateful. That word still makes my blood boil. Ungrateful for what, exactly? For the privilege of being their personal ATM? For the honor of solving problems I didn't create? For the joy of being taken for granted year after year after year? They were confused because the dynamic had worked so well for them for so long. Why would I want to change something that was working? Why would I want to rock the boat when everything was going so smoothly? Of course it was going smoothly. For them, I was the one drowning while keeping everyone else afloat. They were angry because I had disrupted their system. I had upset the balance of power that had them comfortable, and me struggling. I had changed the rules of a game they had been winning for years, and they didn't like it one bit. They tried to manipulate me back into the old cycle. The guilt trips came fast and heavy. Family is supposed to stick together. We've always been there for each other. You're being selfish. What happened to you? You've changed. We're disappointed in you. But this time, I stayed firm. This time, I didn't cave under the pressure. This time, I didn't let their emotions become my responsibility. This time, I remembered that their crisis was not my emergency. Their poor planning was not my problem to solve. Their dysfunction was not my dysfunction to enable. I showed them the receipts. Oh, yes, I showed them the receipts. I printed out bank statements, credit card bills, receipts, documentation of every loan I had given that was never repaid, every emergency I had funded, every problem I had solved with my own time and money. I laid it all out on the table like evidence in a courtroom. I showed them the proof that I was the one holding everything together. I showed them exactly how much their family emergencies had cost me over the years. I showed them how my own dreams had been put on hold, how my own financial goals had been derailed, how my own life had been sacrificed for theirs. And suddenly, the silence was louder than anything they could say. Suddenly, faced with the cold, hard facts of what our relationship actually looked like, they had nothing to say. No explanations, no justifications, no apologies, just silence. That silence told me everything I needed to know. It told me that they knew exactly what they had been doing. It told me that they were fully aware of how one-sided our relationships had become. It told me that my pain was not a surprise to them. It was just something they had chosen to ignore as long as it was convenient for them. The silence told me that they had no intention of changing, no desire to treat me better, no remorse for the years of taking advantage of my love and generosity. The silence told me that cutting them off was not just the right decision, it was the only decision that made sense. That moment when I finally stopped chasing their approval, when I finally stopped trying to earn love that should have been freely given, when I finally stopped accepting less than I deserved, that was the start of my real freedom. That was the moment I stopped being a prisoner to other people's expectations and started being the author of my own story. I wasn't a fixer anymore. I wasn't the family ATM, the emergency contact, the problem solver, the scapegoat. I was me. I was Alex. I was a person with my own needs, my own dreams, my own boundaries, my own life to live. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for an apology or permission to live my own truth. I wasn't waiting for them to acknowledge what they had done to me. I wasn't waiting for them to appreciate all the sacrifices I had made. I wasn't waiting for them to change, to grow, to become the family I had always hoped they could be. I stopped waiting and started living. The freedom was intoxicating. Suddenly, my money was my money. My time was my time. My energy was my energy. My problems were the only problems I had to solve. My dreams were the only dreams I had to pursue. My happiness was the only happiness I was responsible for. I started doing things I had put off for years because I was always too busy solving someone else's crisis. I started pursuing hobbies I had abandoned because I was always too exhausted from being everyone else's hero. I started making plans that didn't revolve around being available for emergencies that never seemed to end. I started traveling to places I had always wanted to see, but never could because my vacation money always ended up going to someone else's emergency. I started investing in my own future instead of subsidizing other people's poor choices. I started building the life I wanted instead of maintaining the life they expected me to live. And you know what? They survived without me. They figured out how to solve their own problems, how to manage their own crises, how to fund their own emergencies. Turns out they were a lot more capable than they had pretended to be when they had me as their safety net. The car my sister claimed she desperately needed and couldn't possibly afford. She found a way to get it without my help. The mortgage payments my parents said would result in them losing their house? They figured out how to make them work without my contribution. The family emergencies that always seemed to require my immediate financial intervention, they handled them just fine without me. It was almost insulting to realize how little they actually needed me and how much I had been enabling their learned helplessness. They had been perfectly capable of handling their own lives all along. They just preferred having me handle them instead. But the anger didn't go away overnight. The pain didn't just disappear because I had made the right decision. The hurt didn't evaporate because I had finally stood up for myself. If anything, it got worse before it got better because I finally allowed myself to feel the full weight of what had been done to me. I was angry at them for using me, for manipulating me, for taking advantage of my love and generosity for years. I was angry at them for making me feel guilty for finally putting myself first, for painting me as the villain in a story where I had been nothing but the hero. But I was also angry at myself. I was angry for allowing it to happen for so long. I was angry for making excuses for their behavior when I should have been setting boundaries. I was angry for being so desperate to be loved that I accepted being used instead. I was angry for losing myself in the process of trying to save everyone else. The pain ran deep because it wasn't just about the money or the time or the energy I had wasted. It was about the realization that the people I loved most in the world saw me as nothing more than a resource to be exploited. It was about understanding that my worth to them was entirely based on what I could provide rather than who I was as a person. It hurt to realize that I had been performing love instead of receiving it. I had been auditioning for acceptance in a show where the audience had already decided I wasn't worth their applause. I had been trying to earn something that should have been freely given, working for something that should have been automatic. The pain was about mourning the family I thought I had, grieving the relationships I thought were real, saying goodbye to the fantasy of unconditional love that had kept me trapped in a cycle of giving without receiving. It was about accepting that some people are simply not capable of loving you the way you deserve to be loved, no matter how much you give them. But slowly, gradually, the anger and pain started transforming into something else. It started becoming strength. It started becoming wisdom. It started becoming a fierce protection of the peace I had fought so hard to create for myself. I learned that boundaries aren't walls to keep people out. They're gates that let the right people in while keeping the wrong people at a safe distance. I learned that saying no to toxic people is saying yes to yourself. I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's dysfunction. I learned that real family doesn't require you to sacrifice your mental health, your financial stability, or your happiness to prove your love. Real family doesn't make you feel guilty for having needs of your own. Real family doesn't use your love against you as a weapon to manipulate you into doing things that hurt you. I learned that blood doesn't make you family, behavior does. Actions make you family, respect makes you family, love makes you family. And none of those things require you to bankrupt yourself emotionally, financially, or spiritually to maintain. The hardest lesson I learned was that sometimes loving someone means loving them from a distance. Sometimes caring about someone means refusing to participate in their self-destruction. Sometimes the most help you can give someone is to stop helping them and force them to help themselves. I learned that you can't save people who don't want to be saved, and you can't love people into loving you back. You can't give enough, sacrifice enough, or care enough to change someone who doesn't want to change. You can only control your own actions, your own responses, your own choices. I learned that peace is not the absence of conflict. It's the absence of toxic people who create unnecessary conflict in your life. Peace is not having to walk on eggshells around people who are supposed to love you. Peace is not having to justify your existence or prove your worth to people who should already know your value. And I learned that you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. You don't have to dim your own light to make other people comfortable. You don't have to make yourself smaller to make other people feel bigger. You don't have to accept less than you deserve just to maintain relationships that are destroying you. The journey hasn't been easy. There have been moments of doubt, moments where I wondered if I was being too harsh, too unforgiving, too selfish. There have been moments where I missed the chaos, because at least it felt familiar. There have been moments where I questioned whether I was throwing away something that could have been fixed. But then I remember that text message. I remember the laughter when I tried to express my pain. I remember the silence when I tried to communicate my needs. I remember the years of being taken for granted, used, manipulated, and treated like my only value was what I could provide for other people. And I remember that I tried. God, how I tried. I tried talking to them, reasoning with them, setting small boundaries, expressing my feelings, asking for basic respect and appreciation. I tried everything I could think of to salvage those relationships while still maintaining my dignity and self-respect. But you can't have a healthy relationship with unhealthy people. You can't build something beautiful with people who are committed to destruction. You can't create peace with people who thrive on chaos. You can't establish mutual respect with people who see you as beneath them. The truth is, I didn't abandon my family. They abandoned me long before I finally walked away. They abandoned me every time they chose to use me instead of love me. They abandoned me every time they ignored my needs while expecting me to meet theirs. They abandoned me every time they treated me like an employee instead of a family member. I just finally stopped chasing after people who had already left me behind emotionally and spiritually. Even if they still wanted to keep me around practically and financially, I stopped trying to resurrect relationships that had been dead for years, kept alive only by my refusal to let them go. Now, when people ask me about my family, I tell them the truth. I tell them that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who hurt you the worst. I tell them that sometimes family is the thing you have to recover from, not the thing that helps you recover. I tell them that blood relation doesn't guarantee healthy relationships, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to love certain people from a distance. I tell them that you don't owe anyone access to your life, your energy, your resources, or your peace just because you share DNA with them. I tell them that real family, the family that matters, is the people who love you for who you are, not what you can do for them. Real family is the people who celebrate your boundaries instead of challenging them. Real family is the people who want to add to your life, not drain from it. And I tell them that it's okay to grieve the family you thought you had while celebrating the peace you found without them. It's okay to miss certain moments while not missing the dysfunction. It's okay to love people and still refuse to let them destroy you. The anger is still there sometimes. It flares up when I think about all the opportunities I missed, all the dreams I deferred, all the money I spent trying to buy love that was never for sale. It burns when I think about how they painted me as the villain for finally standing up for myself after years of being their hero. The pain is still there too. It aches when I realize how much of my life I wasted trying to fix people who didn't want to be fixed, trying to love people who saw my love as weakness to be exploited rather than a gift to be treasured. It stings when I think about how long I accepted crumbs when I deserved the whole feast. But underneath the anger and pain, there's something stronger now. There's pride in myself for finally choosing me. There's respect for the boundaries I've established and maintained. There's love for the person I'm becoming now, that I'm not constantly giving myself away to people who don't appreciate what they're receiving. There's gratitude for the lessons learned, even though they came at such a high cost. There's appreciation for the strength I discovered in myself when I finally stopped looking for it in other people. There's joy in the simple pleasure of living a life that belongs to me, not to other people's expectations and demands. If you've ever been caught in the same toxic cycle, where you give and wonder if it's worth it, I want you to know that you're not alone. I want you to know that your feelings are valid, your exhaustion is real, and your desire for reciprocal love and respect is not too much to ask for. I want you to know that it's okay to be angry about being used. It's okay to be hurt about being taken for granted. It's okay to be disappointed in people you trusted to love you better than they did. Your emotions are valid, and you don't have to minimize them to make other people comfortable. I want you to know that setting boundaries doesn't make you selfish. It makes you self-aware. Putting yourself first doesn't make you cruel. It makes you wise. Walking away from toxic relationships doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong enough to choose peace over chaos. I want you to know that you don't have to light yourself on fire to keep other people warm. You don't have to sacrifice your mental health to maintain relationships that are destroying you. You don't have to accept less than you deserve just to avoid being alone. And I want you to know that sometimes being alone is better than being surrounded by people who make you feel alone anyway. Sometimes silence is better than conversations that leave you feeling unheard. Sometimes distance is better than proximity that suffocates your spirit. The truth is, you can't control how other people treat you, but you can control how much access they have to you. You can't force people to appreciate you, but you can stop giving them opportunities to take you for granted. You can't make people love you the way you deserve to be loved, but you can love yourself enough to walk away from people who don't. You are not responsible for other people's emotions, other people's choices, other people's problems, or other people's growth. You are not required to set yourself on fire to light their way. You are not obligated to drain yourself to fill them up. You are not expected to break yourself to fix them. Your job is to love yourself enough to protect your own peace, to guard your own energy, to respect your own boundaries, and to pursue your own happiness. Your job is to be the hero of your own story, not the supporting character in everyone else's drama. And if that makes you the villain in their story, so be it. Sometimes the people who call you selfish are the ones who have been selfishly taking from you for years. Sometimes the people who accuse you of changing are the ones who never wanted you to grow. Sometimes the people who claim you've abandoned them are the ones who abandoned you long ago. You don't need their permission to protect yourself. You don't need their approval to choose peace. You don't need their understanding to do what's best for you. You don't need their blessing to live your own life on your own terms. The family that's worth having will support your boundaries, respect your needs, and celebrate your growth. The family that's worth keeping will love you for who you are, not what you can do for them. The family that deserves your energy will give you energy in return. And if that's not the family you were born into, it's okay to create the family you deserve through friends who become chosen family, through partners who love you unconditionally, through communities that embrace and support you, through relationships that are built on mutual respect and genuine care. Blood doesn't make you family. Love makes you family. Respect makes you family. Support makes you family. And sometimes the family that loves you best is the family you choose for yourself, not the family you were assigned by birth. So wherever you are in your own journey, Whether you're still in the thick of toxic family dynamics or you've already made the difficult decision to step away, know that you are not alone. Know that your story matters. Know that your pain is valid and your strength is real. Know that it's okay to grieve the family you thought you had while building the life you actually want. Know that it's okay to love people and still refuse to let them destroy you. Know that it's okay to put yourself first after years of putting everyone else ahead of your own needs and happiness. You deserve love that doesn't require you to sacrifice your sanity. You deserve relationships that add to your life instead of draining from it. You deserve family that treats you like family, not like an ATM or a dumping ground for their problems and emotions, and you have the power to create that for yourself, even if it means walking away from people you've loved your whole life, even if it means disappointing people who have disappointed you for years, even if it means being called selfish by people who have been selfishly taking from you without giving back. Your peace matters. Your mental health matters. Your financial stability matters. Your dreams matter. Your happiness matters. You matter. And anyone who makes you feel like you don't matter, anyone who treats you like you don't deserve basic respect and appreciation, anyone who uses your love against you, they don't deserve access to the beautiful life you're building for yourself. Choose yourself. Protect your peace. Set your boundaries. Live your truth. And know that you're not alone in this journey toward a life that actually belongs to you.